Welcome back to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Rachel, and today we are diving deep into the question that keeps most high achieving doctors and medical professionals and professionals out there. It keeps you up at night. And that question is, what if there's a different path to financial freedom? And today I'm super thrilled to introduce you to Dr. Annie Purcell, who turned her medical expertise into a really fascinating career in real estate investing. She's a total powerhouse, and now she's a real estate agent. So she is here with us. She's going to be sharing her raw, honest journey of transformation, her ups and downs, and most importantly, the strategies that could help reshape your approach to building wealth. So if you are ready to dive in and you're one of those busy professionals that I just mentioned, and you're wondering, you know what? How can I create more freedom and flexibility in my life? Grab your coffee, settle in, and prepare to have your whole perspective change. Let's go ahead and dive in. Dr. Annie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with your journey. What was that moment or turning point for you where you felt that, you know what? Maybe medicine is not my forever career.
Yeah, it was actually an unexpected moment for me and
Mm.
the entire world. And it was literally COVID, the pandemic, just
Ooh.
completely shutting my practice down.
Wow.
Unable to see patients because couldn't get masks. And just thinking, like, wow, I had a recession proof business. Like, this was not something that I ever thought like my doors could be shut down for 6 weeks. And
Wow.
the overhead and it just blew my whole mind, and just the adjustments I had to make to get through that, and just thinking, like, owning your own practice, you're not totally in control, something like
Mm.
that can come out of the blue and take it all away, and so it really just put me in the mindset of, like, what are some other streams that I can get going? What are some other things that I can start adding to the plate as I keep doing this right now?
Wow. And I remember when I was furloughed during COVID as well, and my family was thinking to themselves, "Wow, you have a whole doctorate, right? That degree is supposed to be recession proof as well." So I'm sure it's really relatable to our listeners. And so, as you know, many of our listeners are busy doctors who feel completely burnt out, but they struggle with the guilt of, or even the pride of having a whole doctorate that they've worked so hard for, they've paid dearly for, physically, emotionally, financially. So, how did you have the courage to overcome that to start looking at other venues?
I think it took me years to work through the guilt of stopping patient care because, we have an underserved area and I just couldn't get past
Mm,
what are these people going to do if I'm not here. So I didn't look at it as like a hard drop. I
yeah.
just looked at it as like starting to add other things on, starting to invest in real estate, still seeing patients, but I would drop a half day and then I would, drop a certain type of new patient, or I just created a little space for myself to explore other things. And so it wasn't a hard stop. I spent a couple years transitioning and adding, starting to invest in real estate. So I think that helped me kind of ease into it. But another thing I
Mm,
would advise people is, try to look for adding something that you're passionate about doing. When I first started
mm,
seeing the writing on the wall for the healthcare system and private practice, I was kept looking for other things I could do that was still using my degree, and I think that's why none
mm,
of those things really panned out, because I
mm.
think I'm more passionate about real estate, and I needed to it doesn't have to be using your degree. It has to be like, what can you do that you enjoy doing that
Yeah.
pays well for you and creates wealth, you know? And so once I let that part of it go, that I wasn't going to be using my degree, I found a lot of things that I clicked with and that went really well.
This is so, I think, relatable because oftentimes we go into healthcare and medicine and we don't go into quit, right? And I tell my members in the community, I'm not telling you go and rage quit your job. We don't go into healthcare to quit. However, when you start to taste the freedom of the opportunities that are out there in other realms where you have a little bit more of your time freedom or some location freedom
Mhm.
or freedom to explore other interests, it gets really interesting. And I think one thing that we tend to think that there's a permanency, right? So if you and I we decide, you know what, forget all this real estate crap. We want to go back to healthcare. I think we can, right? I think they will
Not off the table,
welcome
yeah.
us with open arms. Don't you think?
Mhm. I kept my license and
Yeah.
things are going great for me. I don't anticipate going back, but you never know what could happen, right? It
Yeah.
could be total economic devastation, and
Yeah.
I can go back and do some patient care if I need to do that.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what gave me my peace as
Mhm.
well. I was like, well, what if? What if you just go all out, burn all your bridges? Is there, a scenario with which you won't be welcomed back into open with open arms? And there wasn't. I didn't do anything that was, ethically incorrect, or I didn't harm any patients, and so I can certainly go back into healthcare. And so I took that bet on myself. Dr. Annie, and said, you know what? Let me just try it. Let me just try it for a year and see how I like it. And I'll probably go back in a year. It's like a sabbatical, and yeah, I have yet to return.
Same here.
Yeah, totally. And so what would you say were like, what were you thinking? What were some of the mindset shifts that you had to make as you're transitioning from something that you had your own whole private practice to something that's a little foreign to you, becoming a real estate agent, investing in that learning curve? What was that mindset shift looking like?
Yeah, the main thing is, I went into medical school with the mindset of, I'm not a business person. I just want to see
Mm.
patients. I don't really want to deal with the business end of things. And I don't know where this changed, but somewhere during my fellowship, I was kind of intrigued by the different models that I might have to work in, and
Mhm.
realizing like I need to create my own if I'm going to be happy. And so I spent 10 years growing a private practice and sort of looking and realizing like, wow, I like running this business. Like I love building a team and doing all the infrastructure. So I was starting to have that mindset of a business owner and an entrepreneur.
Mm.
And then with the real estate investing, I took a confidence out of saying, I'm going to start with one thing. And then if that does well, I'm going to add, and it just kept spiraling. And I think the mindset that got me through that was like finding mentors who've already done this exact thing, so it doesn't feel like such a huge risk. And so I've done a lot of different coaching programs and groups and private coaching along the way, and I think that's why I've been able to scale things.
Okay, so this is so interesting to me. So you went the real estate route. You have expertise in building teams, running a business. You've got that business savvy, that business acumen. There's so many businesses out there. You can become a restaurateur. You could open, an ophthalmology practice or an optometry practice, so to speak. There's so many things out there. What drew you specifically to real estate?
It was my first accidental investment. So,
Oh.
basically, had a second home up an
Yeah.
hour north here. I'm in Redding, California, so I'm in Northern California, and we have a beautiful mountain an hour north with skiing and wonderful outdoors, and so we had a second home up there and loved to go there for weekends. And then I have 2 boys, and they started having, every Saturday was like a basketball game or a baseball game. We couldn't go up there anymore, and I just got a short-term rental permit, and after a few months in, I was shocked, like, I wasn't just helping out with the expenses, the thing was doing amazing, and so I'm like, "What the heck is that?" That's not what we bought it for at all, and, it's still a great short-term rental to this day, but
Mhm.
it made me take a course, about short-term rentals and investing for physicians in real estate,
Yeah.
and then I was just so into that content, I couldn't get enough of it. So that was the
Okay,
start. It was an accident.
I love it, I love it, I love it. So I want you to paint the picture for me. So this is a property that you are intimately familiar with. It is a property that you have in your own portfolio that you are leveraging for your own personal use. you recognize that, "Oh my goodness, all of a sudden it's just sitting there, it's not doing anything. Let me go ahead and get a short-term rental permit for it, rent it out as a short-term rental." Mind you, you're a mom of 2 boys, and you've got a whole practice, right? You were still working
Oh, yeah.
full-time?
That I was
Okay.
working a lot back then. Mhm.
And so that leads to my next question because a lot of medical professionals, docs, they hesitate because they think, "You know what? I don't have time. Maybe if I was like Dr. Annie and retired from medicine, I would have time."
Oh.
What say you? What do you say to someone
Well,
who's thinking that?
so back then, I didn't even know about the short-term rental loophole, okay? So I had a manager, I didn't do that much work on it.
Mhm.
I considered I was working more than full-time because I was seeing patients 40 hours a week, but I was running the practice too. Like,
Yeah.
I was very involved in the business side of everything, so I didn't spend that much time on that first one.
Yeah.
Um, and if I would have been more educated about the tax advantages, I would have made the time and done the short-term rental loophole back then. I just didn't know. Um,
Okay, so let's level set a little bit because we have some new listeners every single week, which I'm grateful for. What is the short-term rental loophole?
so it's basically a way that you can get a tax credit by materially participating in the management of the rental house. So um, I'm sure you're eagerly awaiting, like me, to see if we get 100% bonus
100%.
depreciation back. But at the time, and in the past few years, you could buy a property, put it into service. You yourself would have to spend at least 100 hours getting the property in service and even managing it. You had to do more work than anyone else on the property. So there's specific rules, but it's a huge tax advantage. Like if you can get a home that's like $500,000 and you get a depreciation study on it, and you could really get a tax return back, getting a huge chunk of your W-2 income back. And so that's exactly what I did many years later, but I didn't know about it at the time. 100 hours is really reasonable as far
2
as,
hours per week if we
yeah.
wanna be technical, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you spend all the hours, furnishing it and whatever, but it's doable for someone with still a full-time W-2 job, whereas the other real estate professional status that a lot of us seek and that I have, you can't do that when you're still in patient care.
No, no, not at all. So again, for those of you who are just tuning in, you do not need real estate professional status to take advantage of this short-term rental loophole that feels like it's giving you the benefits of a rep status or real estate professional status,
Mhm.
which is awesome. So can you walk us through what was that second property then? If you're like, okay, this first property, I can't believe how it's performing.
Right.
I want to get another one. I was like, can I have
Yeah.
two of these, please?
Right. And these questions they're really eye-opening for me to look at it like you just have to take action on something, because every time I answer you, it's going to be because, well, I did that, right? Like I had the
Mhm.
accidental short-term rental
Yes.
house. And then a few years that was just still, I was still working for many years. But when I started to try to invest more in real estate, I got another short-term rental house and I did the short-term rental loophole. And then I got that first tax refund in the mail and I was like, oh my God, how many patients would I have had to see? And like, how many insurance people would I have had to be on the phone yelling at to get that amount of money? And
How many calls to the pharmacy,
it
right?
just changed my whole
Oh,
perspective. And so I actually didn't scale a portfolio of short-term rentals. I did 3 and they're great. I
okay.
still have 2 of them, but I happened to notice that when I was just looking for properties, wow, my market, these short-term rentals actually cash flow positive as a long-term rental. My mind is blown.
Lovely,
And I'm
lovely.
in California, like that's not supposed to happen, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was seeing a lot of people, they were getting them in the Smokies and on the beach. And like, if that demand changes and you can't cash flow as a short-term rental, you're not going to just rent it out for a year and be okay. And so because I saw that up here, it led me to, I just started picking up like duplexes or a fourplex, just long-term rentals, because that's where I am. And that's where I started to scale. That was an
Okay.
accident.
And I love the way you shared, the power of momentum, the power of taking action. So one, action leads to the next, and I think it's Steve Jobs who says that you can't really map it out until you look back, you're like, "Oh,
Yes.
that's why I did that," right?
I could not have read anything or taken any course to really get me
Mm.
to these next steps because I was in it, I was doing it, and that's the only reason I knew it would work.
Okay, interestingly enough, so inside of our mastermind, I have something called the pre-marketing strategy, and my revenue manager coach, he and I, we butt heads all the time about it. He's like, "No, no, we don't want to launch the property until it's completely pristine, it's perfect, it's got the best photos
Mhm.
and everything." I'm like, "It's under contract. List that bad boy, ugly photos and all. We're gonna use some MLS photos. We'll use a mood board, list it because there is so much power." That comes from the momentum of seeing the bookings coming in.
Mhm.
Okay, so right now, say you're in February and you'll list it, and then you won't open the calendar until May. You say, "Coming soon, we're accepting our first guests in May," for instance, just as a scenario. So it's not like they're gonna roll up on you that same day. And so last night, 2 of our members, they launched and, they leveraged the pre-launch. They're not completely live. They listed it. One got 4 bookings, one got 7 bookings.
See, I know.
And their mind is blown, and they're like, "I would have never known that, there are, guests coming in for a soccer competition. I would have never known." I was like,
Mhm.
"Yes." I said, "I would have never known that either. Like, none of my research said that you're going to be accommodating families coming to competitive soccer with their kids." And there was another one, horse jumping. It's like, "What?" Like,
Mhm.
these competitions, and you don't know until you're in the trenches, you're actually doing the thing, and so it was just such a great reminder. So you, my friend, you're in Northern Georgia, Northern California. I'm in Georgia.
Yes.
Now you, Dr. Annie. You're in Northern California, and it's really surprising to me. So can you break that down for us again? For those sitting in the back, I feel like I was sitting in the back. So you're saying that there are some really amazing and surprising opportunities in your particular market that you were overlooking, a lot of other people may be overlooking as well. So
Yeah, I
paint
mean,
us that picture again.
I wasn't even looking because it's like, "Don't invest in California." Like, if another
Period.
person needs to tell me
I've said it so many times. You will find me on the records that we're not doing
I heard
California,
that,
so
and that's
guilty as charged.
and there are reasons,
Yeah.
but, I'm here, so that's part of it, but, even for a distant investor, you have to think about certain things, like, this isn't the market on the podcast that everyone is scouring through, and it's a growing market, it's stable, but it's still cash flow positive in California for certain properties, and so I just leaned into it, and I kept adding, and, I wasn't competing with a lot of other investors. These are
Right.
smaller areas, but especially with, like, how beautiful it is here, our
Yeah.
outdoor
It's a
adventures,
vibe.
the
Yeah.
short-term rentals are amazing. They do so well,
Mhm.
and what you were just saying about, everything doesn't have to be perfect. When I was just getting my first Airbnb listing ready, I wasn't really feeling ready for a guest yet, and so but I was working on stuff, and I'm like and I just set, like, this high price because no one was gonna book it, and I was still working on things, and then someone from the Bay Area booked, like, their entire winter break at that rate, and I was like, "What the heck just happened?" So
Yes!
I made myself ready, but I was like, "Oh my god."
You better believe it.
So I was gonna
You
be
better
pricing too
believe
low.
it. Okay, so you're in my camp, right? Tim, eat your heart out, Tim. You're in my camp. Like, just let's put it out there, and you got an amazing booking. Goodness
Like,
gracious.
so fast. It was so amazing. I don't know what happened, but I didn't feel ready?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's talk to our listeners right now who are thinking, you know what? I'm ready to take action. I got to do something for myself in 2025. I may not love, what's going on in my career. I may not love the progress I've made so far or lack thereof. I've been thinking about real estate. I know that's the buzzword
Mhm.
in the healthcare realm, but just not exactly knowing how to get started. What would your advice be for someone who's thinking, you know what, I want out?
Yeah.
Or I want to cut back. I'm going to be down to zero point 0.5 FTE. I'm burnt out, but I am scared to make that leap.
Mhm. I would say to get the first property going and start small, find an agent who knows investments that can help you. I think that
Mm,
was hard for me at first.
yeah,
I didn't really have investor agents, so I was kind of on my own, but I would ask a coach. Find someone that can really funnel properties to you and show you the projections, and also maybe make it a little less risky because it's your first one. Maybe somewhere where you could do a short-term rental, but if it wasn't perfect, you could do midterm or long term and still be good. you know I think that's a hesitancy about a lot of people getting their first short-term rental. If it's a really expensive property and the market might change, that is something to make sure you're not at risk for. But just put something into action that you feel comfortable with, and after year 1 and especially after year 3, everything feels amazing, right? Like, sometimes year
mm,
1's always a little bit, you're learning what's going on, but if you can just put something into service and get it starting to cook, you'll start to realize what you can do, and then you'll keep getting more confidence to do more.
awesome. I love that. So, Dr. Annie's saying, you know what? Take the leap, do something, right? Because at the end of the day, what you're not changing, you're choosing. So, choose wisely, my friend. Choose wisely. So, if you had to start all over again, Dr. Annie, knowing what you know now, what would be your very first step with real estate investing?
Well, we can't go back to where we had the low interest rates. I
I
did
wouldn't.
I did take action. Like, it was an uncertain time when I started getting some of my properties, even though the
Yeah,
interest rates were low, right? So just just moving forward and putting things into service during that time, I've locked up a bunch of long-term debt with low interest rates. So that
nice.
was awesome. But I would say just, going into it like you're going to succeed. Even,
Mhm.
like when I first opened my medical practice, I would tell, "Oh, I'll see anyone you want. I'll do anything you want." I just wanted to get busy and not be worried. And so, same with real estate, like starting from the very beginning, like, I know I'm going to succeed with this. So, right away, get the best accountant and the best attorney, and don't be afraid to spend a little bit more, and just get all the systems in place
Yeah.
right off the ground floor, because you're going to succeed, and then things will happen even faster. But sometimes that stepwise manner is what helps you get your foot out the door and do something. So I don't regret that part of it.
Love that. Love that. All right, Dr. Purcell, it's time for our rapid fire questions. Are you ready to tackle these with me?
Yes.
Okay. So, can you share a moment when you felt completely burnt out and how you overcame it?
Yeah. There was like a catalyst moment.
Ooh.
My son was probably a few months old, like 6 months old, where you're still in the thick of it. I was doing full-time patient care. I was doing
Mhm.
all these things to grow a brand new practice. I was even doing like my own QuickBooks for the practice. I still can't believe I did that, but I thought I needed to like learn it first.
Mm.
But I was like, it was a Sunday. I was exhausted and I was like folding laundry and for like 4 hours, and I'm like, "How is this like what I'm doing right now?" And I just was melting
Mm.
down, like, I don't even have time to run this practice and feed my baby, and I'm folding laundry, and I just was crying, and that's what led me to get my first personal assistant.
Oh, yeah.
And once I did that, I started, you know, getting rid of things that I didn't need to be doing, and just not being like, if I had to go to the grocery store after work, it would ruin my whole night, because I didn't have time to do any of that stuff. So that was like my meltdown moment where I'm like, I cannot function this way any longer. And I've had personal assistant ever since. And it's been great. But I just thought, look at all these things I'm doing, and I'm spending my only free time, like, folding laundry.
Mm. I was just on a call with Dr. Jamie Hope. She's in our Seven Figure Women's Mastermind, and she was like, "If I'm changing a bedpan, I'm not saving a life." She's a ED doctor, right? So, what is your best and highest use? Maybe, just
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah.
All right, next question for you, my friend. What is a tool or a book or a resource that's completely changed your perspective on life or work?
I think that all of the EOS, the whole series of book
Mm,
Traction,
yeah.
Entrepreneurial Leap, Rocket Fuel, I use all of that stuff to look at everything I'm doing as its own little business. I've had several different
Mm,
companies. My real estate properties are one business that I need to run with that system. And now being an agent, I need to implement those systems with what I'm doing here. I did it with the medical practice. So I think if you look at anything you're doing as like a true business, following the steps in those books by Gino Wickman are so valuable.
so true. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that tool.
I
All right,
didn't mean
final
to say
question.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, like, I cannot handle that's all anyone says. But I did read it and it was amazing, it got me going, but,
Right, we gotta switch it up a little bit. Let's switch
yeah.
it up a little bit. Yes, I love it. All right, what about this? What is the craziest real estate story you've ever heard or experienced?
So I would say, I mean, heard, I could probably dig deep and find something, but I would say experienced is just basically my life, and everything I learned and doing what I was supposed to do, investing in where you're supposed to invest. I've invested in Texas, Memphis, you know, following all of that and then just telling you right now, like, my portfolio in Northern California, like, extremely outperforms my Texas properties, and, like, how is that supposed to ever be what's happening? It's not. Like, no one it makes no sense to anyone, and so I think it's just a way to let people know, like, take everything into consideration, take your own
Yeah.
expertise or where you might have an angle. You don't, it's not all just go to the hot market every time and do what everyone's
Mhm.
saying to do. And so that's what I learned.
No, no, it's wild. You're absolutely right, and it sounds like you're sitting, like, on a hidden gem that had you not put yourself out there, you wouldn't have even known about because you're right, everyone's talking about the Smokies or, the Panhandle of
Mhm.
Florida, the Gulf
Now it's
Coast.
like Columbus, Ohio. I mean, it's always something else, but, like, think about what you could maybe have access to
Mm,
or a way in
yeah.
with. Um,
Yeah, like, maybe like a little market
Little
inefficiency, your
advantage,
own
yeah.
little edge. Yeah,
Mhm. And
yeah.
just, if it's nothing's cash flowing and it's hard, that's because you need to look somewhere else. Like, it's not just that stay in the hot market. I listen to a lot of courses, and so I think just be open-minded to
Yeah.
possibilities anywhere.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I found similar to you, I found some hidden gems in areas where you wouldn't expect.
Mhm.
And it's why we talk about instead of our mastermind, we talk about something called the CROW, and I hate keep talking about it, but it's so appropriate, right? The CROW methodology. So C stands for if you're looking for a new market, C stands for think about a place that you're connected to.
Mhm.
Let's start there, right? Can we start there for a second and see if the numbers pan out, and then we expand out? Okay, what are the professionals that are in the field talking about? You wouldn't believe the leads that I got from like my cleaning team or my lender or my
Yes,
title
that's
company.
huge.
It's huge, right? And then you expand, of course, your realtor, and then you expand it to, okay, now maybe let's look at some on trend report, just to add some of that to the mix. And finally, word of mouth, like you said, you're part of courses and masterminds. If you hear the same location coming up again and again, now you've built a list and you want to run the numbers to see if you can filter it down to like your short list, right?
Mhm.
So C says we're connected. There are places that you're connected to, whether it's in your own backyard or somewhere you've traveled to for work or for leisure. A lot of these places there are hidden gems in there, and understanding how you can exploit some of those inefficiencies that others may not be thinking about because this is your own real life experience. It's a game changer. You, if I'm being fully transparent, Dr. Annie, y'all, she changed my whole perspective on California. I was like, oh, Rachel, stop dishing on California. Like when you shared with me, in the green room and when we spoke beforehand, I was like, seriously? And it got the wheels turning for me because I had a few members that had joined and they were showing me some areas near Coachella
Mhm.
and then Josh, which I was like, wait, $500,000? Really?
Yeah, really.
Where my assumption was like 2.1 million. Yeah,
Mhm.
you guys are just out there. But I was like, wait, and so I had to take a back seat, and then by you coming and sharing this, I was like, okay, this is like validation
Mhm.
that there are untapped opportunities on the West Coast. So
There are.
amazing, amazing. So, Dr. Annie, before we wrap, I would love the community to know how can they best connect with you because you are our expert resource on the West Coast. So, would love for them to connect with you and learn a little bit more about what you're doing and how you're helping investors,
Yeah.
particularly medical professionals and others, get into the market.
Yeah, I would love to. I love to connect on Instagram. I have Dr. Annie Purcell is my main Instagram, and then I just have a new Annie Purcell Realtor, which is a new account. But I can connect on either of those. I'm on LinkedIn, Annie Purcell, and Facebook, Annie Davidson Purcell. And I try to. I'm talking to a lot of people about real estate opportunities on any of those platforms, and my contact information is on my Instagram. So I'd love to hear from anyone that sort of sees themselves where I was years ago, and
Yeah.
needs a little encouragement or some advice.
Love that. Love that. Well, Dr. Annie, it's been such an amazing conversation. Your journey is proof that there are so many different ways to achieve financial freedom beyond our traditional path that we were taught. So, for those who are listening and are ready to kind of explore what 2025 can look like for you, know that you're not trapped. You have options. Definitely check out Dr. Annie Purcell's information. We will link it all into the show notes. So, definitely follow up with her. And so, as always, if you're ready to start building your own path to financial freedom through luxury short or midterm rentals, definitely connect with us. I'm Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, and this has been the Luxury Short Term Rental Doctor Show. Until next time, my friends, keep building the life that you deserve.